Let me tell you about the day I stopped waiting for closure. It wasn't dramatic. No fireworks. No final words wrapped in a bow. Just me, sitting with the ache of what would never be explained, and realizing that waiting for an apology or a reason was keeping me stuck in the same loop, replaying, rehashing, reopening. And that day, I decided I was done. Today, we're talking about one of the hardest truths many of us face, especially later in life, when decades of relationships, family dynamics, and heartbreaks pile up behind us. Closure is not something you're given. It's something you decide. We've been sold this idea by movies, TV shows, and even therapists in the early 2000s, that closure is this beautiful, healing moment when someone finally explains themselves, apologizes, makes sense of it all. But here's the reality. Most people never get closure. Not from an ex, not from a parent, not from the friend who ghosted you, not from the child who won't speak to you anymore. According to a study published in the Journal of Positive Psychology, over 60% of people report unresolved feelings after major breakups, even decades later. Why? Because closure isn't a conversation, it's a process of acceptance. And sometimes, that process happens alone. Let's be honest. Waiting for closure feels fair. I deserve an apology. I just want to understand what happened. If they could just explain why they hurt me, I could move on. But here's the question. How long have you already waited? Months? Years? A lifetime? I once knew a woman named Helen, divorced at 58 after a 30-year marriage. Her husband walked out without much of a word. For 5 years, she waited. She read into every email, every financial transaction, every family gathering. "He owes me an explanation," she'd say. At 63, she finally told me, "I realized I have been renting out space in my mind to a man who no longer pays rent." That was her day, the day she stopped waiting. So if closure isn't an apology, if it's not a tearful confession or a handwritten letter, what is it? Closure is you standing in the wreckage and saying, "I may never understand why this happened, but I refuse to keep bleeding from wounds someone else won't clean." It's a shift from needing something from them to giving something to yourself. It's self-respect. It's emotional adulthood. It's peace on your own terms. Now let's touch the real nerve. Why do we crave closure so badly? Because without it, we blame ourselves. Because silence feels like rejection. Because ambiguity keeps the hope alive. Psychologist Dr. Robert Niemeyer, an expert on grief, says, "The human mind craves coherence. When something ends suddenly or without resolution, it disrupts our identity. We want to make sense of the narrative. But here's the catch. Some stories don't make sense. Some people never grow enough to tell the truth. Some endings are just endings. And part of maturing, especially in our 50s, 60s, and beyond, is recognizing that peace doesn't come from clarity. It comes from choice. So how do we decide on closure? Let's make this practical. 1. Write the letter, but don't send it. Write everything you wish they'd hear. Say the ugly, the honest, the heartbreaking. Then, burn it. This isn't for them. This is for you. 2. Name the lesson, not just the loss. What did this experience teach you? Boundaries? Self-worth? Resilience? Find the gift hidden in the grief. 3. Stop arguing with reality. As author Byron Katie says, when you argue with reality, you lose 100% of the time. They may never apologize. You may never know why. But you can choose to stop needing that to move forward. 4. Take your power back. Say this out loud with me. I release the need for their apology. I give myself permission to heal. I am not defined by someone else's silence. Yes, it sounds simple. No, it's not easy. But it's yours to own. Let me share a few short stories from people who made this decision. Mark, 71, was ghosted by his adult daughter after a family dispute. He wrote her birthday cards every year and never got a response. At 69, he stopped. Not out of anger, but acceptance. She knows I love her, but I refuse to chase someone who won't look back. Diane, 64, never got closure from her abusive mother, even after her mother passed. She created her own ritual, lighting a candle and reading a letter aloud at the cemetery. "I stopped waiting for my mother to heal me," she said. "I healed myself." To the person watching this who's still checking their phone, still replaying the last conversation, still asking, "Why wasn't I enough?" Or, "What did I do wrong?" I want you to hear me. You do not need their permission to move on. You do not need their blessing to be whole. You do not need their voice to quiet your soul. Your healing doesn't require their participation. And the moment you truly accept that is the day you begin to breathe again. So maybe today is your day. The day you stop waiting. The day you stop asking questions that only echo in silence. The day you look in the mirror and say, "This chapter ends with me. Not because I got the answer, but because I chose peace over punishment." You're not weak for needing closure. You're strong for surviving without it. And if no one's told you lately, you are allowed to move forward, even if the ending was messy, confusing, or cruel. You deserve a life that isn't held hostage by someone else's silence. This is your release. This is your peace. This is your closure. Thanks for watching.